G'day there, Damien from Integrity Property Education. And if you're looking at property investing, looking for property investment strategies or property investment advice, you've come to the right place. Today's blog video is about acquisition and holding costs. Two very different but very important costs that you must be able to calculate and understand if you're going to be a property investor. Now, the first one, acquisition cost. What does that actually mean? Well, the acquisition cost of a property is how much of your money are you going to have to tip in at the start of acquiring a property. So what things do we need to think about? Well, first of all, there will be stamp duty. Stamp duty will vary slightly in all the different states, and you need to go to your state government website, the Office of State Revenue, to see how much stamp duty is going to be liable on the property that you're acquiring. You're also going to need legals. And legals in some cases can be as little as $500 and as much as $2,000 for your average residential investment property. Building inspector. You're going to need to get a building inspector to inspect the property, and usually we advise our clients to make sure that you get 2 inspections done. 1 as an initial inspection to get the inspection report done, and then 2 to send the inspector back again if there's any problems with the first report and you've asked the seller to fix them up just to make sure they've done it. That might cost you about $500 plus GST in total to get the 2 inspections done. Then you've got your rental manager. Now, most rental managers will charge you 1 or 2 weeks rent to establish the rental management arrangement and then charge you a percentage after that. That can be anywhere from 6 to even 10% in some cases. So that initial letting fee is an acquisition cost, not a holding cost. And then another one to think about is also loan establishment fees. Often the banks will charge you $400 or $500 just to set up the loan. Now, once you add all these up, you'll come up with a total figure of how much you have to pay to buy the property, and they're the costs. Now, added to that, of course, must be your deposit. So if you're putting in a 5%, 10% or 20% deposit, you need to add that. And if you're borrowing less than 80%, you won't have any mortgage insurance to pay. But if you're going above 80%, you will also have to add mortgage insurance to that. And you need to ask your bank or your mortgage broker how much that figure is going to be. So by way of an example, if we're going to buy a $450,000 investment property with a 10% deposit, we'd need a $45,000 deposit plus about $20,000 to cover the stamp duty, legals, and all the other costs. Now, the mortgage insurance will vary differently from each bank, but one of the options you do have with mortgage insurance is what they call capitalising, where you can just have the mortgage insurance added to the loan instead of having to pay it yourself. And that can be very advantageous when you're on a tight budget trying to scrape into a property. So that's acquisition costs. Very important that you understand them. And a lot of people get sort of sideswiped by them when buying their first investment because they don't understand that all these extra costs come in as a transaction cost at the front. Now, the smartest way to deal with acquisition costs is if you're buying your second property after your first one, just get an equity loan on the first one and cover all those costs and consider putting all your cash into an offset account and keeping that as a cash buffer. Often that's a smarter way to cover the acquisition costs and keep your risk management in check so you've always got some cash handy. The second cost that we're interested in with a property is then our holding costs. How much of your money are you going to have to tip in every month in order to hold that property? So there's a whole range of factors that need to come into play here. First of all, we must consider what rent we're going to receive for the property, and then we must consider all of the costs. Now, the biggest cost will always be the interest on your loan. So it's very important that you consider that. And in some cases, if you've got a principal and interest loan, then you've also got to consider that principal amount that's going to be chargeable from a cash flow perspective. Yes, it will reduce the amount of debt, but it's still something that you have to cash flow. The second biggest expense is often going to be body corporate fees. Now, body corporate fees can vary. A simple townhouse might have a body corporate fee of about $2,500 a year. And in some cases, though, body corporate fees can be ridiculously high. $15,000 to $20,000 for these high-rise apartments that have all the bells and whistles, gymnasiums, 8 different fast accelerating elevators, swimming pools and things like that. This is why we say to people, be very, very careful when you're buying apartments or townhouses, because that body corporate fee can wipe out your cash flow and it can be very, very expensive. So make sure you think about what the body corporate fee is going to be. Third one is rates. Rates, generally speaking, will be about $2,000, give or take, as a planning figure. Make sure you check with the local council what rates they're going to charge on the property. And also, though, there is some cases where rates can be particularly high. If you're buying commercial property or if you're buying property in canal estate, you can have particularly high rates, as often canal estates have extra rates for dredging of the canals and things like that. Other holding costs you're going to have to consider are insurance. You're going to have to consider building insurance and your landlord's insurance. And you're also going to have to consider the maintenance costs of the property. Now, if you're buying brand new and the property has got a warranty, well, in the first year, your maintenance costs will be zero to none, depending on how long your warranty is. But if you're buying an old property, often the maintenance costs can be very, very high. 1 year it's the carpet, next year it's the air conditioners, next year it's the plumbing, next year it's painting, next year it's the weatherboards and things like that. And you can be blown right out of the water by not considering those costs. So, when investing in property, 2 costs to think about. The acquisition cost, how much of your money are you going to have to tip in up front? And then the holding costs, how much money you're going to have to tip in week to week to hang on to it. Now, of course, you should also speak to your accountant to find out what your tax return is going to be for that property. And then it's basically an equation of rent plus tax return versus expenses. Am I going to end up in front or behind after tax? And if you're going to end up in front, go for it. If you're going to end up behind, seriously reconsider buying that property, because you can only own so many properties where you have to chip in the balance of the funds. That's it from me. If you haven't been to our one-day course, we run them all around the country. Remember, they're absolutely free and there's no obligation to do anything at the end. Go to propertyinvestmentmentor.com.au and click on the training tab and you'll see when we're next coming to a town near you. And if you like this blog post, make sure you like, comment and share below. Until next time, that's it from me. Cheers.